told to deliver this message. I was told to deliver this message.
Assalamu alaikum, family. It's your brother Landon X, NationTown TV live, coming to you with a special installment, because we're gonna get into a very heavy topic. As always, as you can see above my head in the caption, the topic we're gonna get into is, do we need guns? And by we, I don't specifically mean the Nation of Islam. I mean black people in general, especially in light, really, of the last 40 years of so-called black-on-black violence, in light of the bloody weekend that we just had. But we're going to get into it. We're going to get very deep into it. And I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm going to leave it up to you. I mean, I know where I stand on it. I know where the Nation of Islam stands on it. But we'll see where you stand after we go through a few things. But let me first start off in the proper fashion. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who mercifully appeared to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever, plus 1,000 days as far as I'm concerned. I further bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger, with all due respect and love for Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace be upon him, who revealed the Holy Quran to the world over the span of 23 years to set off a renaissance that we can still see the effects of to this day. But this man right here fulfilled a part of that Holy Quran that said certainly a messenger would be raised for every nation. And by nation, it means a group of people. And for my group of people, for my dispensation, this man is the messenger of Allah at minimum. At minimum. And I would know nothing of him or Master Fard Muhammad if it were not for the man that those two hands came together to produce. The criterion himself, the discernment himself, this beautiful brother, magnificent brother, divine leader, teacher, and guide, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And in those three great names, I greet you in the words of peace. We said in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. Shout out to everybody chiming in. I see you. The whole NationTown family. Brother Jermaine, I see you. All praises due to Allah. Hopefully I won't be on too long, and we might have to do a continuation of this because I got a lot of information to deal with. First, let me say what prompted me to deal with this topic. While we received a beautiful message from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan this past 4th of July, at the same time, the enemy was at work. Not only the enemy outside of ourselves, but the enemy as he has been placed in our own minds. Because in our own communities, we had an onslaught of homicide and shootings in our community. And the worst part is that a handful of the victims, a handful is too much in this case, but 4 of the victims in particular, all of them were too young to go, but these 4 right here were lost. Friday evening, they were here. Friday evening, they were enjoying life. They were looking forward to their entire life. Probably had dreams that if it had been the will of Allah and if we would have laid out paved the way for them in the right way, they would have been able to achieve all those dreams. All 4 of these angels, these beautiful melanated children, their lives were lost. As you can see, this is a social media post that said at least 5 children aged 6 to 11 were shot and killed over the 4th of July weekend while doing everyday things, riding in their mom's car, walking in a mall, and playing in the yard with their cousins. And I'm also going to show you an actual news report that goes into a little bit more detail, because not to single out either one of these children, all these babies' lives were precious. But this sister right here, Secoriea Turner, this little sister, 8 years old, beautiful sister, she was the one that was shot while just riding along with her mother in the city of Atlanta, a city that I lived in for about a decade. Beautiful little sister. And I'm going to go into some details about her case, because the details on that case, or should I say the accusations on that case so far, are really interesting in the worst way. But go ahead and watch this news report that gives a little bit more information on it.
Gun violence erupted across the nation over the holiday weekend. Chicago, 70 injured, 17 killed, including a 7-year-old girl. New York City, 50 shot, 9 dead. This shocking video shows one victim being shot from a car as he walks hand in hand with his 6-year-old daughter. At least 6 of the innocent people caught in the crossfire over the holiday were children, ranging in age from 6 to 14.
You shot and killed a baby.
Atlanta's mayor expressed outrage over the death of 8-year-old Secoriea Turner, who was killed in a shooting near the Wendy's where Rayshard Brooks died 3 weeks ago.
You can't blame this on a police officer. You can't say that this is about criminal justice reform. This is about some people carrying some weapons who shot up a car with an 8-year-old baby in the car.
The little girl's grieving mother was overcome with emotion.
We didn't do anything.
Here in New York City, the shooting spree comes as the mayor and city council members are cutting the budget of the police department by $1 billion. The move follows a nationwide cry to defund the police.
You take a look at what's happened this weekend, the amount of shootings. Imagine if there weren't cops out there.
President Trump tweeted, 67 people shot in Chicago, shootings up significantly in NYC. Federal government ready, willing, and able to help if asked. The sense of lawlessness sweeping the nation was illustrated by this astonishing video of illegal fireworks across Los Angeles.
Now, I'm not sure if that video went into the details I was talking about, but one ironic thing about this is that if you remember Rayshard Brooks, as it did show, he was murdered and then they burned down this Wendy's restaurant because that's where he was murdered. He was murdered in the parking lot. There's a liquor store right next door. And Secoriea Turner, her mother, with her in the car as well as with a unidentified male, I believe it was her stepfather or her mother's boyfriend, pulled into this area that had been illegally barricaded by protesters. Not just any protesters. These were the so-called Black Lives Matter. Remember, they caught a white girl on television burning down the Wendy's. It was not us that burned down the Wendy's. And as you remember, after the George Floyd murder, these demonstrations were largely Caucasian. And then it was usurped and hijacked by the LGBTQ movement. And because of that, I guess you could say, mainstream attention that movement was getting, the city of Atlanta allowed this Black Lives Matter demonstration to basically take the whole street. They shut down the street. They put up a fake barricade that was not issued by the city. It was not ordained by the city. They just set up a barricade. Why? I don't know. Why? I don't know. But they set up this barricade so when Secoriea Turner and her mother had pulled into it, before they could make a U-turn, they began shooting at the car. There were two shooters, allegedly at this point. One was described as wearing all black fatigues, like these pseudo Black Panthers that you have seen footage of, video of. There was even a march this past week on Stone Mountain, which, you know, and I got love for the brother Grandmaster Jay, who was the head of that. He's been interviewed several times by our sister that works with the Final Call newspaper, Sister Charlene Muhammad. And he's a good brother, and he's very zealous and appears to be very serious. And I'm not blaming him or his organization in any way, shape, or form. But that same week and that same weekend, they were marching through Atlanta and Stone Mountain, apparently to confront white supremacists, which I find interesting because, I don't know, maybe things have changed. But when I lived in Atlanta, no less than 7 or 8 years ago, Stone Mountain was predominantly black. But the person that they're claiming shot, the shot that took our sister, the shots, she was shot, the little girl was shot multiple times, by the way. The shots that took our sister, they claim, came from this individual who early reports are saying that he was black, and then another individual in a white t-shirt. So these were allegedly protesters involved in this and responsible for this based on early reports. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that this could very well be a false flag as far as it appearing to be protesters. And given the fact that all of these protesters, by the time, you know, as of last week or the week before that, when these protests and demonstrations were really reaching a boiling point, 80 to 90% of them were Caucasian at that point. Were Caucasian and homosexual. And that's what we talked about on a previous episode when we talked about, you know, infiltrated movement and how easy it is for the enemy to come in when you don't have a military line system, when you just think all you got to do is put on a fatigue, get a gun, a Black Lives Matter t-shirt, or whatever the case may be, and, you know, it's all good. Set a couple of police cars on fire, you know, make some noise, throw an organized hissy fit to get white attention, and it's all good. So this could very well be a setup. It could very well, I mean, they got masks that look like me, that look like your typical black man that they can put on. So in the heat of a moment, you suddenly see, you know, when guns are ringing out. I've been in areas where there's been shooting in 3 different regions of this country. In the Deep South, in the Midwest, where I was born and raised, and here in Los Angeles. I've been in those situations, so I know what it's like to be around when bullets are flying. And when that happens, you don't really get a chance to really get a good look at people. So it's easy to just put on one of these masks that look very realistic, you know, do some dirt, and then, you know, take off, and people say, oh yeah, it was a brother. So I understand that. I understand it could very well be. However, this was one of 23 shootings that took place in Atlanta. And hell, half of those could be, you know, the police. It could be, I mean, keep in mind, this is on the heels of the question of defunding the police. And that's something that no police department wants. Because the police, since the crime bill, police have received more funding than they ever did in the past. That's why they have weapons grade military equipment, military grade weapons equipment, and they don't want to give that up. So I'm very aware that this could be an issue, but we're going to talk about guns in general because we know guns are an issue in our community. And we also have this question that's kind of like shooting up the charts. Now we all know, and you know, for those who, I'm sure everybody knows, if you can't read the hat or the NationTown logo, you know I'm a member of the Nation of Islam. You know, I was a sympathizer for a couple of decades. I've been a registered member several years now. And I would say the number one question that we get as believers from our people is, of course, did y'all kill Malcolm? And it's a damn shame that, you know, so-called intelligent black people are still asking that question when the white man has already told on himself. He got the Freedom of Information Act. So he got all this information open to the public, but y'all don't want to read because y'all lazy and want to use deceptive intelligence. And then it's also, some people ask, do y'all believe in Jesus? Do y'all worship the moon? That's another popular one. But one that's shooting up the charts as far as the most common questions that we get in the Nation of Islam is, man, when y'all gonna carry guns, man? And you hear brothers and sisters saying, oh, you know, I feel what y'all doing. I like what, you know, I love Farrakhan, you know, but, you know, when y'all, let me know when y'all get some guns, man, and I'm ready. I'm ready. Let me just say this. That's a very cowardly piece of deceptive intelligence. That's just like walking around the hood saying you the hardest brother in the hood. You a real nigga, but you ain't ready to take no fade unless the whole hood is with you. Your whole block is behind you. I mean, if you really about that life, if you really a knockout artist, if you really, you know, down to take a fade, you just gonna go somewhere swinging. You just gonna take off on somebody, right? But that's becoming one of the most common questions that we get in the Nation of Islam. When the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was at California State, Long Beach, a few years ago, that was a question that the college students asked the minister, you know, when are we going to take up the guns? When are we going to pick up guns? Because we are convinced that we need guns as a people in order to acquire any type of power, in order to acquire any type of success, in order to defend ourselves. And I'm gonna deal with that and bust that whole thing up. But before we get into that, I want to bring up a couple of other issues, because I want to really lay down. I'm gonna lay the groundwork on this, so y'all can really feel where we coming from on this entire situation. Now, this past week, as I pointed out, a group ran by our brother Grandmaster Jay. He's not a member of the Nation of Islam, but you know, for all intents and purposes, he seems like a strong-willed brother. And let me say this: I love seeing unity, however it comes. Even when I'm amongst our street organization brothers, also known as gang members. I prefer not to call them that. At minimum, I respect just the unity that they appear to have. Now, that even the unity in the gang world has broken up. You got right now one of the biggest problems in Los Angeles are sets banging with each other within their own set. We all know that allegedly Brother Nipsey Hussle was murdered by someone in his own set. But wherever I see unity, man, even if I see a bunch of Negroes in church, I just love to see us together, you know, on the same accord. That's something we just don't see enough, and we don't really understand the value of it. So this is what you saw. You saw these brothers and some sisters, and they had on they fatigues, and they had the assault rifles, and they were in Stone Mountain. You know, these were several different gun clubs that came together to march on Stone Mountain. For those who don't know, Stone Mountain is essentially the Mount Rushmore of the Confederacy. There's a large monument on the side of the mountain, on this mountain, of Robert E. Lee and so forth and so on. Jefferson Davis, I believe, is on there, the president of the Confederacy, so forth and so on. So this happened at the same time that the issue took place with the 23 shootings in Southwest Atlanta. Right? You know, 15 minutes up, I guess you take the 285 to 20, you know, you right there in Southwest Atlanta. And unfortunately, you know, this show of power was not beneficial for our little sister, Sister Secoriea Turner. But also, interestingly enough, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in his beautiful message to us, where he covered everything, man. I mean, he touched every base, including this particular situation with Sister, well, not necessarily with Sister Secoriea, because there was also a rash of shootings in Chicago again. And the minister touched on this. He touched on our thirst for our own blood. And I want you to listen to the minister as he mentioned this in his groundbreaking message, The Criterion.
You try to force us. That's a declaration of war on all of us. You only have this one life. Fight like hell to keep it, and fight like hell to destroy those whose heart and mind is to destroy you and take your life from you. So yes, quit the police force, because the day of partying in the black community is over. Using our women for playthings, taking our young people, feeding them guns and drugs. And you are such a silly young man. You are out there killing one another. 18 in one day in Chicago. Do you think that you will escape the wrath of God? This is the last time that you will hear me for a while. This is the last time that you will hear me for a while, because you've treated me like a lovely song. We love to hear you sing, Farrakhan, but you won't do what I ask you to do. So I'm telling you that when you don't see me anymore, I'm fulfilling the Quran. I will not chastise them while you were among them. Once he takes me away from you, by whatever means he uses, death and destruction will come down on America and the world.
You heard the man for yourself. Now, shout out to everybody chiming in. Sister Sherry Land Giles, Brother Salam H. Shabazz, Brother James Priest, Assalamu alaikum. Feel free to hit us up. Brother DeMar Cannon, hit us up with your questions and comments. But let me be clear. What we're about to get into are facts, not emotion, and not colloquialisms, and not based on the way our slave master, and for many of us, current slave master, and for others, former slave master, has raised us. For those of you very familiar with that beautiful man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, several years ago, he did a lecture called The Real Children of Israel. And in this lecture, he pointed out that not only are we factually and literally the real children of Israel, because as we're taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, 3/4 of the scripture is prophecy and not history. We're the only people on this earth that were actually enslaved for 4 centuries. The Jews can't actually say that. The so-called Jews can't say that. So we are the real children of Israel, but also on a modern day figurative standpoint, we are also the children of Israel, with Israel being white supremacy in the Western Hemisphere. We're like their children because anything that they give us permission to do, or anything that they do, the worst that they do. Now, we don't, for some reason, we don't catch on to the actual good things that they do, like spending money in our own community, educating our own children, you know, loving ourselves, living amongst each other in harmony. We don't do those things that they do, but the dumb stuff that they do, we seem to latch onto it like a leech. So many of us feel as though that there's nothing else that we can do other than pick up a gun, and then everything else will follow, because we don't really understand how this white man operates. So what we're going to do, we're going to get into facts, not emotion, not the way this devil raised you, but we're going to get into actual facts. Actual facts. Because the thing is, when you see the white man pull up in a country, or as we're about to see in Atlanta, because they just recently, our sister Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, you know, I wish her a speedy recovery. She just was diagnosed with COVID-19, but she also requested that the governor deploy 1,000 National Guard troops. Even though she didn't make that request when there were white people stomping up and down the street and setting the city on fire, setting restaurants on fire. But now, you know, she's decided to call the governor, who was, of course, a Caucasian male, to deploy troops, National Guard troops, which is something the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan predicted. He predicted this. But not only that, but in this situation, what we see from our people is our ignorance of this white man and the way he truly operates. There's a book called Diary of an Economic Hitman. And if you read that book, you find out the real weapon of the Caucasian and white supremacy. It is not a gun. It is not a missile. It is not a tank. When you see tanks when you see National Guard troops, when you see any branch of the military with boots on the ground anywhere in this world, that means America has already done their damage. That's just the cleanup crew. Even when you see police going up and down our streets with riot gear, the only way they're able to do that is because all of the precursors have already been successful. They've already successfully caused us to hate each other. They've already successfully broken us economically. They've already successfully broken us spiritually. They've broken us with our language. They've broken us with our culture. They've broken us with education. They've already broken us, and they've broken up our families. They've broken us in the way where you got black women and black men going at each other. They've broken us in a way where we think it's cool for men to be feminine and women to be masculine. Once they've already covered that, once they've caused, disarray within that community, then they come with the guns, then they come with the bombs, then they come with the tanks. Ask our brothers who are survivors of the movement in Philadelphia. What you don't hear about is that there was already infiltration prior to them dropping those bombs. They had agents walking around with dreadlocks and, they was with their shirt off. You know how the move people went down, but they had agents within them that kept them asleep long enough for them to attack. But I'm not going to get into all that right now. So what I'm going to do, since we just love to do everything the white man does, I'm going to tell you something about your father, your adoptive, wicked foster father. I'm going to give you a little bit of history on him. I'm going to use what I believe is one of the most inventive and interesting depictions of why this white man has such an addiction to his guns. Emphasis on that, his guns. Because we're talking about up to 5 children under the age of 11 that lost their lives this weekend. And it reminds me of that old saying that you hear mothers and grandmothers say in the hood, that a bullet has no name on it. It doesn't. The bullet does not have a name on it. It can, anybody can get it. But guns do have names on them. And it ain't Aboriginal names. It ain't Muhammad. It ain't even hood names. It ain't Keontae. It ain't Shamika. It ain't Shaniqua. It ain't even Jenkins, even though that's a slave name. But I ain't even seen a white man last name Jenkins. But I want you to watch this. This is from a documentary called Bowling for Columbine that was done by Michael Moore. He's a documentarian. He's a Caucasian. So this is a white man telling on himself and telling on his own people. This is why white people hate Michael Moore. But I want y'all to watch this. I want you to pay close attention as he breaks down in a very entertaining fashion the history of white America and their guns. Pay attention.
Now it's time for a brief history of the United States of America. Hi, boys and girls, ready to get started? Once upon a time, there were these people in Europe called pilgrims, and they were afraid of being persecuted. So they all got in a boat and sailed to the New World where they wouldn't have to be scared ever again.
Oh, I'm so relaxed. I feel so much safer.
But as soon as they arrived, they were greeted by savages, and they got scared all over again. So they killed them all. Now, you'd think wiping out a race of people would calm them down, but no. Instead, they started getting frightened of each other. Witch! So they burned witches. In 1775, they started killing the British so they could be free. And it worked, but they still didn't feel safe. So they passed a Second Amendment which said every white man could keep his gun.
I loves my gun. Loves my gun.
Which brings us to the genius idea of slavery. You see, boys and girls, the white people back then were also afraid of doing any work. So they went to Africa, kidnapped thousands of black people, brought them back to America, and forced them to work very hard for no money. And I don't mean no money like
I work at Walmart and make no money.
I mean $0. Nothing. Not a zip. Doing it that way made the USA the richest country in the world. So did having all that money and free help calm the white people down? No way. They got even more afraid. That's because after 200 years of slavery, the black people now outnumber the white people in many parts of the South. Well, you can pretty much guess what came next. The slaves started rebelling. There were uprisings, and old master's heads got chopped off. And when white people heard of this, they were freaking out and going, I want to live. Don't kill me, big black man. Well, just in the nick of time came Samuel Colt, who in 1836 invented the first weapon ever that could be fired over and over without having to reload. And all the southern whites were like, yeah! But it was too late. The North soon won the Civil War and the slaves were freed. Yep, they were free now to go chop all the old master's heads off. And everybody was like, oh no, we're gonna die. But the freed slaves took no revenge. They just wanted to live in peace. But you couldn't convince the white people of this. So they formed the Ku Klux Klan. And in 1871, the same year the Klan became an illegal terrorist organization, another group was founded, the National Rifle Association. Soon politicians passed one of the first gun laws, making it illegal for any black person to own one. It was a great year for America, the KKK and the NRA. Of course, they had nothing to do with each other, and this was just a coincidence. One group legally promoted responsible gun ownership, and the other group shot and lynched black people. And that's the way it was all the way to 1955, when a black woman broke the law by refusing to move to the back of the bus. White people just couldn't believe it.
Well, I won't say move.
What's going on? Man, all hell broke loose. Black people everywhere started demanding their rights, and white people had a major freaky feel meltdown. And they were all like, run away! Run away! And they did. They all ran fleeing to the suburbs where it was all white and safe and clean. And they went out and bought 250 million guns and put locks on the doors, alarms in the houses, and gates around the neighborhoods. And finally, they were all safe and secure and snug as a bug. And everyone lived happily ever after.
I mean, that just lays it all out. So that's a brief history, but very clear history on some of y'all's pappy, the white man, and how he fell in love with his own gun. Pay attention how they kept coming back to fear. Because that's really what the gun is. It's a scared man's weapon. Like I said, white supremacy uses weapons as a cleanup crew. After they get in your mind, after they mess up your money, after they cause division within your communities, then they clean you up. You know, they clean up the dead bodies, the dead brains with their guns and with their ammunition. But notice how fear was a recurring theme throughout all of that. Now, let me jump right on that question of, do we need guns in our community? We need guns to protect. We got to have guns because, you know, the white man, when he come with his stealth bombers, with his you know, predator drones, I need my rusty deuce. I need my snub nose that I ain't cleaned in 6 months. That's probably gonna jam when I shoot it. They got about 13 bodies on it, and all those bodies look like me. I'ma need that when they come with their riot gear and their military grade equipment. Trillions of dollars pumped into all these local police departments that ain't even counting the branches of the military. I need my little shotgun when they come. Okay. Let me give you a cheat sheet. As far as what anything, when the question comes up about anything that if you ask, do we need this? Do we need that? Anything that we currently have an abundance of, and it's easily accessible in the so-called hood, is not the way to go. Now, this is common sense. Again, if we have an abundance of it already in the ghetto, if it's easily accessible in the ghetto, it ain't the way to go. Because common sense will tell you that if that was the route, if that was the move, then we wouldn't be in the condition that we're in. I don't even understand the question, we need guns. Do you know? And I didn't even grow up in no major, huge city like a Los Angeles or Chicago or New York. But I remember when I was 17 years old and I fully made the decision that, you know what? I'm gonna try to go to college. But I didn't know anything. I didn't know, I didn't know the first step to make. I had an idea that there was an application process and all of that. I had no idea how I was going to pay for it, how you pay for it, if you even, I didn't know nothing. Now, mind you, I didn't gang bang, but if if I didn't have friends that banged, I wouldn't have had friends at all. So almost all my friends did. I didn't bang, but at the age of 17, I knew more about how to get a gun, how to operate a gun, where to go to get a gun than I knew how to fill out a college application. I didn't even know that there was an essay question on most college applications. I didn't know that. So I knew more about how to get a gun, being somebody who grew up in the hood, than I knew about going to college. So don't tell me that guns is the way for us. It's our salvation. Is there a preponderance of murders in our community by the police? Yeah. Is there a preponderance of so-called black on black? And I say so-called black on black because there's really no such thing as black on black crime. Because a black man has never killed another black man, ever. Niggas kill black people, and sometimes black people gotta kill niggas, but I've never seen actual black on black crime. But anything that you see in our community that's easily accessible, anything that you see in our community that we already have an abundance on, is not the way. I done been in houses. I done walked into trap houses as a teenager. And I know for a fact, because I'm looking at the guns on the table, $2,000 to $3,000 worth of guns, street value, not even counting retail value. And then I go in the kitchen, check the refrigerator. It ain't nothing but a empty, raggedy, moldy, doggy bag from a Chinese restaurant and a box of baking soda. There's more food in the house. More guns in the house than food. And that's not a coincidence. They giving us these guns, man. They leaving trains wide open in our communities for us to just get these guns. The federal government, when they gave us crack, they gave us guns at the same damn time, at the same damn time, at the same damn time. So if guns was our salvation, man, the ghetto would be the safest and most productive place in America. If you want to go to a city and get a job, you should just go to the ghetto. If you want to go to a city and be safe, you should just go to the ghetto, if guns was the key. But going back to what I was saying, if you want to know what's not the way, just look and see what there's a abundance of. And I'll break it down for the slow people out there. I'll break it down. Because, you got to give, I know sometimes I think better when I see it. People say, man, you know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? No, I don't see what you're saying. But if you let people see what you're actually saying, then, sometimes they get a better idea. First of all, we know that in the ghetto, you got a lot of drugs. And now they done messed around and legalized weed, what you think is weed. We got our dispensaries on every corner. Hard as hell for a black man to open up a brick and mortar business. But then all of a sudden, as soon as weed is legalized, you see a new dispensary pop up every day. I'm currently parked right next to a dispensary that was closed down. It might open back up soon. There's no shortage of liquor stores. In Atlanta, they call them package stores. And if you're in a more of a white neighborhood, they call it a package store. In the hood, it's just a liquor store. We accept food stamps. Liquor stores on every corner. Liquor store. Dispensary, liquor store. So we know liquor ain't the way. We know weed ain't the way. We know dope ain't the way. Huh? We got a lot of crooked cops in our neighborhood. They're like the Gestapo. So we know police presence is not the way. Because we've earned nothing from having a heavy police presence. Because they act like they're soldiers in Tikrit or Baghdad. And we're the insurgents. We're the enemy. So we know that that's not the way. And we know, unfortunately, church ain't the way. Because every church and every street in the hood got 20 churches. Some of them the exact same denomination on the same block. So Christianity, the way it was given to us in slavery, with the book of Exodus and the book of Deuteronomy and Numbers ripped out of it because it talked about freeing slaves, that ain't the way. And I'm sorry to tell you, we got more guns than we have fresh food in our community. That ain't the way. If it was, we would all have a mansion and a yacht in the black community. The black community would be the safest place in the world because we have more guns than we have anything else. We have more access to it than damn near anything else. Go to any ghetto close to you and run a test. Say, you know what? I'm gonna try to find some healthy food, and I'm gonna try to find a gun and some weed. I'm gonna try to find healthy food and a book, a good book in one hand, and then I'm gonna go try to find some weed and a gun. You're gonna be rolling around the hood for about 3 to 4 hours looking for that healthy food and those books. Soon as you get out the car at the gas station, you're going to see the opportunity to get some dope and to get a gun. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Hey, man, I got that fire. I mean, come on, man. So anything that's easily accessible in the hood, anything that's easy to come by. One of the questions I'm always having to answer to people when they find out I'm in the nation, you know, oh man, brother, I'm in so-and-so, I'm in Charlotte, oh, I'm here, I'm there. You know where the mosque is here? You know where the mosque is there? You know where the mosque is? So it's a lot of people having a hard time because that's every Muhammad mosque is in the hood by design. If we're gonna raise the dead, we gotta be in the middle of the graveyard. But a lot of people don't know where Muhammad Mosque is. That's why on the Nation's program, we got a map that breaks down where all the mosques are. So anything that's easy to find in the ghetto is just not. It automatically cancels that out as even a real attribute. Not just salvation, but even an attribute. Because if it was really helpful, then we would show it. All these guns, but we still get killed by the police. All these guns, and do you know, we all know about gang violence, and gang violence, unless you've been up under a rock for 30 years, let me tell you, as somebody that, like I said, that grew up in the Southwest, in Midwest Southwest, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where it used to be Black Wall Street, let me tell you, bruh, gang violence is all over this country. The same gangs that originated in Chicago and in Los Angeles are all over the country. Every gang member that has to get scooped off the street because his brain is hanging out his head, his guts is hanging out his chest. I've seen it with my own eyes. Every gang member that gets shot, they owned a gun at the time they got shot. A DeKalb County detective, a brother in Atlanta, he told me, brother, he said probably 7 out of every 10 gang-related shooting, a hood shooting, 7 out of 10, he said the brother that got shot had a gun on him. Listen, they have not, now there's some really cold weapons technology out there. There's some really cold weapons technology out there, but they have not invented a gun yet that stops bullets. So please stop, however you feel about guns. Because I'm not telling, if you scared and you feel like you just need a gun, it'll make you sleep better at night, I'm not going to tell you not to buy one. It's just not how I get down. And it ain't just because I'm in the nation. And I'm going to go over some of those actual facts in a minute. But if that's what you want, that's what you want. But please stop lying to yourself and other people. It's for protection. They have not invented a gun yet that stops bullets. I'm going to tell you, man, I might get kicked out the nation, because if they invent a gun that stops bullets, I might have to cop that. I might have to cop it. I might have to get that gun that shoots a force field. Guns shoot projectiles, and they easily shoot projectiles. Every time you look up, there's a story in the news of some 2-year-old, 3-year-old getting a hold to a gun and killing either himself or somebody that lives in the house. And I'm going to get into that, into those statistics in a moment. So they have not invented a gun that blocks bullets. It does not exist. Even bulletproof vests cannot completely block a bullet, depending on the caliber and the range that you get shot. And gunshots still hurt with a vest on. So they have not invented that gun yet. So stop with the protection part, with the protection excuse. And also, one thing I know about guns is that a gun is a tool. It's a tool, and just like a mechanic, you have to be skilled with it. Saying that just having a gun protects you is just like saying if I put a wrench in the hand of a 6-year-old, that makes him a mechanic. Now little Junior can fix everybody's car in the hood because I didn't put a wrench in his hand. I didn't put a damn saw, a miter saw in his hand. Now he can fix everybody's house. He's a carpenter now. Just because I put a tool in his hand. No, you got to learn how to use that. So it's a tool. It ain't no magic. Now, I know we feel invincible, and that's another reason why the violence in our community is what it is, because a brother get hold to some raggedy gun, like I said, with 10, 15 bodies on it. It ain't been cleaned in years, you know. So now he think he like Bishop on Juice. Now he just think he that dude because he got this little raggedy ass gun. I know that's how you feel, because we feel so powerless as a people. The minister said this. We feel so powerless. We go put in an application at a job. They deny us. We feel powerless. We go out into this world and we try to do things the right way. We even try to go to school. That don't work. We try to get a job. That don't work. We try to be nice. That don't work. We try to do this, and then all of a sudden, we put this gun in our hand. We go to the park full of people, and we just shoot up in the air, and everybody scattered. And oh, now we feel strong now. But remember what I said: anything that you can easily find an abundance of in the community, in the black community, it is not the way. Now let's look at some of the things that you can't easily find in the black community. And I'm talking about, I'm a brother who has lived in 3 different regions. So I'm not talking about one particular city, oh, in my hood, we got this. No. I'm talking, I'm a ghetto connoisseur, because when I go to a city, I want to go to the ghetto. I don't want to, if I go to this city, I want to go and see landmarks and go to Disneyland and all that. I only been to the beach once since I've been in LA. I've been in LA going on a decade. I want to be around my people when I go to any city. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to what you see in the hood. Now let's look at some of the things that you can't find in the hood. You can't find a good book. I'm talking about the kind of books that will wake us up and disarm the work that the enemy done already put on. Remember what I said. When they come with the guns, when the enemy comes with the tanks and the guns and the soldiers and all of that, that means that all of their previous plan A, B, C, D, and E has already been successful. They done busted us up. They done made us hate ourselves. They done busted up our families. They busted up our education. They busted up our concept of God. They busted all of that up. Now, all they got to do is sweep up the mess. When you start breaking stuff, at the end, all you got to do is just sweep up the mess, and you done with it. So you can't find a good book. Brothers come to me all the time. Brother, man, I can't find the true history of Jesus, man? How can I find that? By the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Hey, man, I'm trying to find, secret relationship between blacks and Jews. You know, how the white man got so rich. Help me find that. Help me find that. Help me find this book. Man, I was talking to a brother about Things Fall Apart, one of my favorite books by a Nigerian writer, Achibe. Hard to find books in the neighborhood. Healthy food. I'm talking about truly healthy food. I'm not just talking about them dry, raggedy produce that you find in most ghetto supermarkets. Really good quality food. Hard to find a navy bean. Hard to find raw milk. All we got is processed food. You know, these raggedy, fast death restaurants, so-called fast food or fast food restaurants, because you got to be a damn fool to eat that mess every damn day. So you can't find food. You can't even find real self-defense training. I was blessed growing up, because the beauty about martial arts, and shout out to all our martial artists out there, because the beauty about martial arts, it doesn't just teach you self-defense. It also teaches you self-control and self-respect. It teaches you how to disarm. It teaches you how to disarm somebody to run up on you with a gun. I've been in that situation before. Somebody running up on me with a deadly weapon multiple times. But as a young child and early teenager, I was blessed because there was a black police officer in my community who was also like a umpteenth degree black belt in Taekwondo, and he gave out free Taekwondo classes, and I took that for about 4 years growing up. It was free. It would be like 80 of us in every class, all poor black children who could never afford paid lessons. Never afford karate lessons. The only thing, we didn't even have to pay for our gis. We didn't have to pay for our belts. The only thing we had to pay for is if we decided to enter some type of tournament. Shout out to brother Sensei Marvin Blades out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. May Allah be pleased. He passed away a few years ago. Beautiful brother. But it's hard to, to find something like that for your children in the black community. How to get self-respect and how to defend themselves. You can't find economic education in our community. How to actually own the land. We can't talk about defending our communities when we don't even own it. That's why, like our sister, I forgot her name, but her video went viral where she kind of busted up something I had in my mind. She said, you know what, we need to stop talking about, these riots messing up our own communities, because it really ain't ours anyway. So how's that gun gonna protect something that's not even yours? We don't even know the proper way to go about owning land and using this $1.3 trillion of bond power that we have. So it's no economic education. That's hard to find in our community. Black-owned businesses, hard to find in our community. Y'all know I've been on this Black Dollar Days. Every time I post a black business that I spent my money at, people hit me up. Man, where is it? Where? Man, let us know where it is. Man, give us a list of all the businesses that you know about. Like I just, like I'm the oracle of black-owned businesses, because they so hard to find. And when we do find one, we come with that wanton criticism. So these are things that are hard to find. But I thank Allah, because the Nation of Islam, which is, to be fair, is sometimes hard to find, because it's only maybe 1 or 2 mosques or study groups in every city. It ain't like the church where it's a church on every corner. But by the grace of Allah, the Nation of Islam tries to bring that, and successfully brings that, to every community. It plants the seed of all those things that we actually need. But one thing that every organization needs is support. But we're already, even with a lack of support from our own people, we're already providing that for our community. What am I talking about? I talked about how we need books. Almost every city, there's a bookstore that you can go to. I know 2 brothers that operate bookstores here in Los Angeles. And we produce books, some of the most life-changing books that you can have. You should have all 4 of these. It's really 5 because it's 2 editions of the How to Eat to Live part, book 1 and book 2. I talked about healthy food. We got our own food distribution system. Right now, during this COVID-19, man, we feeding ourselves, man. With healthy food, the healthiest food that you can get out the ground, which is the navy bean. But we have access to staple goods through our own community. We were able to give out, I believe about I want to say about 1,000 pounds of navy beans and soup to the community and the projects here in Los Angeles just 2 weeks ago. And then I mentioned self-defense training. And I just want to show you some of the produce that's been produced. Those who watched the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan Saturday, the garden where he spoke from is also connected to a farm in Michigan. We also have them in Georgia. I believe there's one in Alabama as well. Healthy food. See? And then the Nation of Islam, I mentioned self-defense. Nation of Islam has a well-storied tradition of self-defense. Not just self-defense, but community defense. And that ain't something that we used to do. That's what we still do. You walk up in any mosque in the Nation of Islam, there's a sensei sitting right there. Just walk in and say, where's sensei at? They'll point you in his direction or her direction while you playing. In fact, you know what? Let me give you a little bit of taste. Speaking of guns, I'm going to let our assistant Supreme Captain show you a little bit of information, a little maneuver, just a little taste of how we get down in the FOI.
Now, I'm going to demonstrate exactly what it is that we're doing. The idea is that security is prevention. And we want to make sure that we are mindful, watchful, and understand exactly what is going on. When you see a man who is moving about and he appears to have something more than just himself, that means he may be carrying something that he would consider a God that makes him greater than his real ability. So when we see that, we have to anticipate that there is something more there. So this is not the time to be distant, away from him. This is the time to be closer to him. So with this particular situation, and I'm assisted by Regional Captain Dwayne Muhammad, I want to be able to, as he steps to reach, to secure the hand. I want to go immediately and secure the hand to the body.
And that's just a taste. You know, like our Mason brothers say, ask one to be one. If you want to know a little bit more about self-defense techniques. Now, I know, you know, in our community, you always got contrarian Negroes. Oh, man, that wouldn't work. Oh man, all I got to do is just shoot him in the head. Okay, see, you weren't paying attention when I first started. We're talking about facts. Now, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, so I witnessed with my own eyes the scourge of the crack cocaine epidemic, where every black community in America, not just the Chicagos, not just the New Yorks, not just the Atlantas, every hood in America was a war zone. I remember picking up crack vials and skipping them across the street like Opie Taylor on the Andy Griffith show where he skipped that rock across the lake. I used to skip crack vials across the street, 7, 8 years old, messing up the soles of my shoes, stepping on top of them. Gunshots in the morning, can't see in the morning, can't see at night. Some of y'all know where I'm getting at. One of the worst places that was hit by the crack epidemic and the violence that followed it was Washington, D.C., which was the birthplace of what's known as the dope busters. These were FOI who, without guns, I didn't say without arms, but without guns. I didn't say without hands, I said without guns. I didn't say without God, I said without guns. They went into the community and they made our communities a decent place to live. In fact, they were so effective that the United States government had congressional hearings because they didn't like the fact, because keep in mind, most housing projects are federal, it's federal property. So they didn't like the fact that the Nation of Islam was not only protecting our people and making these housing projects in the heart of the crack era, the heart of it, and making it a decent place to live, so they shut it down. But with more support from our community, we would have been able to continue it to this day. And we ain't gonna stop striving to do it, because we still doing it to a certain degree. There was a almost 30-year gang war that was brought to an end here in Los Angeles between the black and the brown, that through the work of our beloved Western Regional Student Minister Abdul Malik Saeed Muhammad, as well as brothers like our first officer and training captain, our first officer, Brother James A. Muhammad, our training captain, Brother Will Muhammad, that they were able to broker today, in this day and age. But let's look at an article from the Chicago Tribune about the dope busters. They began patrolling Mayfair Mansions, an all-black, formerly middle-class apartment development last year. This is an article from the early 90s. After residents invited them to try their luck against local drug dealers. The results were immediate and decisive. Local crime went down. It went down. Drug-related killings stopped. Though the District of Columbia police chief criticized the Muslim patrol as vigilantism, at first the support of some district council members brought cooperation. Residents breathed easier. Children, now we talking about children. Children again played outdoors. One of the little brothers that was shot this past weekend, that's all he was doing, was playing in his own yard. Children again played outdoors. Senior citizens walked in peace. I've heard from brothers who were a part of the dope busters, who actually soldiered out there, said you had little girls setting up lemonade stands in the middle of a housing project. Requests for more Muslim aid poured in from the neighborhood, civic, tenant, and religious groups throughout the Washington area. Just as criminal activity feeds on itself, so does community crime prevention. Now that's just an example. So don't tell me, oh, you need guns. A scared nigga need a gun. Yeah, I agree. I agree. A scared nigga need a gun. I would donate a gun to a scared nigga just so he can get a nice bit of sleep at night. So I agree with you on that. But that idea that we need that, there's just no actual facts to support that at all. And not only can you not find, like I said, healthy food, you can't find real self-defense training, you can't find economic training. It's hard to, all these things hard to find in our community. It's also hard to find real education. Real black operated, black owned, black centered, Aboriginal centered education. And y'all know how we do in the Nation of Islam. when it comes to the education move. Y'all have seen that. Y'all know all about Muhammad University of Islam. Shout out to the MUI family out here in Los Angeles. My wife is also a teacher with the local MUI. But also there's the economic side of it. Muhammad's economic blueprint. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he laid out a blueprint. When you talk about all the businesses the Muslims had and the Muslims had, we still have businesses. Do you support them? See, the messenger put that out there as a blueprint so we could see, Aboriginal people in general, not just Muslims, that we could see that we could operate businesses for ourselves. He even taught us how to actually support them. He taught us about wanting criticism. He taught us to never boycott a black business. And to this day, you see the fruits of that. Salam Restaurant, one of the best restaurants you can go to in the Chicago area. Here in LA, we got Your Bakery. And like I said, the Muhammad economic blueprint. Now, when I said that we were going to deal with facts, I'm going to not only bring up facts, but I'm going to also expose contradiction. Because we contradict ourselves as Aboriginal and black people sometimes when it comes to all of our issues, but particularly this gun issue. Because people are always like, oh, but we need guns. Oh, we need guns. Oh, we need guns. We need all those things that I just explained, or else we don't have a need for guns. We're taught by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan two things when it comes to guns. One, there's nothing that says we will never use a gun. You come at us with a gun, you better use it. Because if we get a hold to it, we are obligated to use it. We ain't just going to throw it away and then help you get back up and say, oh, assalamu alaikum, brother. You all right? Nah. Also, we're taught that once we establish our own land and territory, then we will have an arsenal of weapons to protect it. What do we have as Aboriginal black people in general to truly protect? Our families are broken up. Our communities are broken up. We don't own none of it. And let me give you an example using a different example to expose a contradiction. If you ask anybody, any black person, especially now since we all, internet scholars now, if you ask somebody, what do you think about Barack Obama? Did Barack Obama fail black people? Those of y'all watching, hit me up. Let me know. Did he fail us? Was he a great president for black people? We supported him. I mean, man, we supported the hell out of him. We went and we voted and we voted and we voted. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. But did he fail us? He did? What? I can't argue with that if you say he failed us. And if you say that he failed us, what you're saying is that 8 years of a presidency, which is really just the CEO of a corporation called the United States of America. So he really doesn't have that much power. At the same time he was president, there was a black CEO of American Express, Kenneth Chenault. Did you get a free, unlimited American Express black card? No, you didn't. But he did fail us. Barack Obama failed us as far as our hopes and dreams that we put in our own head. He never made a promise to us, directly to black people. I watched both of his campaigns, 2008 and 2012, very carefully. He made no promises specifically to black people. None. But he did fail us. So in 8 years as president, we had a black president. His wife and his children were descendants of slaves. Not him, but his children, and his wife was and is. But he did almost nothing specifically for black people in 8 years, and we mad as hell right now. We kicking up dust. Well, let's hold guns to the same microscope. How long have we had access to guns in the black community? A little bit more than 8 years. How much money do we spend on guns? We didn't spend nothing to put Barack Obama in office. We spent about 15 to 20 minutes. I admit it was about 30 minutes in 2008 because, you know, the lines were so long. I voted for the brother myself. Took me about 15 minutes to vote for him. I didn't spend a dime. How much time and money do we spend with guns? How prevalent are guns in our community? How long have we had access to guns? A little bit longer than 2 presidential terms. What are the results of us having access to all those guns? Are our neighborhoods safer? Our access to guns has done nothing but increase since integration. Has safety in our community increased over the last 60 years? You ever talk to old school brothers and sisters and they tell you, man, I remember when you could leave the door wide open. Can you do that now? But gun ownership, whether legal or illegal, has skyrocketed in the black community in the last 50 years. That's an absolute fact. So if we're going to knock brother Barack Obama, and I ain't mad at you if you do, if you knock him, but if you're going to knock him, you got to hold your AK-47 under the same scrutiny. Because we've been having AK-47, SKs, Glocks, Smith & Wesson. We've been having all them before most of y'all Negroes even knew what a Barack or a Obama was. You knew about the gun and you had one or you wanted one. And what has that honestly done for you? His brothers walking around here right now and got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, but they got 4 guns up under they air mattress. Let's go into some actual facts. Here's some facts about gun violence in the United States. Pay attention. There's roughly 1 gun for every person in America. We are a heavily armed country. Gun crime is more prevalent in the U.S. than in any other rich country. America easily has the highest murder rate from gun violence than any other superpower. Gun homicides, like all homicides, are down from the 80s and 90s. Places with more guns have more homicides. There are more gun suicides than gun homicides. Think about that. You keep hearing people say every black household should have a gun. Okay. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was taught by God directly, said otherwise. And these statistics back him up. Suicide is more common in places with more guns. Guns contribute to domestic violence. Whenever baby daddy start arguing with baby mama, please believe a gun will get picked up. Now here are crude odds ratio for homicide in the home, for homes that have guns. When there are 1 or more guns kept in the home, you're almost twice as likely for someone who lives in that home to be murdered. Do you know that there's actually 8 times more likelihood You're 8 times more likely, when you bring a gun into your house, it's 8 times more likely to be used against somebody that lives in that house than to stop an intruder, whether it's the police, a crackhead, or whoever. If the gun is kept unlocked, then there's even twice more of a chance of somebody in that home getting killed by that same gun than a household that does not have guns at all. If the gun is kept loaded, now you're coming up on 3 times the likelihood of somebody in that house who lives in that house being murdered compared to a house that does not have guns. People who just have a gun and they trick themselves into thinking it's for self-defense. They think their gun, they think their deuce blocks bullets. Almost twice as likely for somebody in that house to be murdered by that gun than a house that does not have guns. Now, these are just actual facts. If you mad at these facts, you mad at numbers, then, you know, go find your math teacher from high school or elementary and take off on it. I don't know how else to tell you as far as you being mad at numbers. Remember, these are facts, not emotions. Now, we dealing with murderous police. So I'm seeing stuff on social media saying, "Hey man, we need to have, if we had guns, we wouldn't have to worry about we wouldn't have to." Tell that to my brother Philando Castile, who was a legal carrier of a firearm. He did everything you were supposed to do as a legal firearm carrier. When the police officer pulled up, he told the police officer, before the police officer even found it, he said, "Officer, I am a legal gun carrier and I have the weapon on my person concealed right now." And that police officer, remember that cartoon I just showed you? Damn near doo-dooed in his police pants and shot our brother dead in front of his future wife and his future stepchild. And he died right there. You looking at him right now. That's Philando Castile, our brother. He thought, "I need a gun for protection." I hear brothers say, "Man, you know, I'm with y'all in the nation. I like y'all, man. I like Farrakhan. But man, you know, if y'all was more like the Panthers." See, the Panthers, man, they got the guns, man. See, that's what okay. I got all the respect in the world for the Black Panthers. I've listened to some of their leaders, their original leaders, speak. In fact, the one that I'm most impressed with was Fred Hampton. That brother wasn't even 25 yet. He was absolutely brilliant. Had he lived longer, Huey, Bobby Seals, all of them would be an afterthought compared to him had he lived. That brother was sharp. And I have love for my Black Panther brothers and sisters. But and for those that don't know, they were inspired by the Nation of Islam. Their 10-point program was almost identical to what the Muslims want in the Muslim program. That's where they got the inspiration for it from. But what they did is they took the Muslim program, they subtracted God, and then they grafted in the gun. So what they worshiped, what they felt like their power was rooted in, was the gun. The best things about the Black Panther Party had nothing to do with guns. Their breakfast programs, they even had job programs in some cities, just the overall unity, the process in which they actually monitored the police. If a single mother in the community was having problems paying her light bill or something, the Panthers, they'll go door to door taking up a collection to help this sister pay her light. That's the kind of stuff that made the Black Panthers great, not just carrying a damn gun. Like I said, if that was the magic potion, there would be no problems. in our community. But our brother Fred Hampton, brilliant brother, pictured here to the left, he died. He was murdered in a house filled with guns. He was in bed with his woman who was pregnant at the time. And he was murdered by the police. They kicked in the door, killed him cold blood, and the house was filled with weapons. Like I said, man, the gun is not a magic potion. It's a tool. And if your enemy picks their tool up before you do, guess what? They call that having the drop on you. And then the worst part about this situation, the way that they were able to creep up on him is because there was a snitch that worked closely with him. So again, it ain't the gun that gives you power. It's being organized and prepared. That gives you power. But when you lean on a gun or any other carnal thing, then that means that makes you loose and it makes you weak in other areas that really can save your life. Here in Los Angeles, one of the legends here in Los Angeles is Bunchy Carter, another brilliant brother. A brother out here, I don't know this to be 100% true, but a brother out here told me, an elder brother told me that Bunchy Carter was actually a junior FOI, meaning that he was an MUI student in the Nation of Islam prior to 75. So he had some of the discipline of the Nation of Islam already in him. You hear Tupac rapping about Bunchy. He was going to become the leader of the LA chapter. But the FBI sowed seeds of dissension within the Black Party, and then also created beef between the Black Panther Party here in LA and the US coalition that led to him being murdered on a college campus. On a college campus. They were doing a demonstration on a college campus. He was murdered. Cold blood. Black Panthers. And these were the original Black Panthers. Not just niggas walking up and down the street with guns. I'm talking about the original Black Panthers. My brother, who I also admired, Huey P. Newton, another brilliant mind. He went on to get his doctorate degree after the Black Panther Party disbanded. Very brilliant brother. Live by the gun, die by the gun. He was murdered, unfortunately. He developed a addiction. Remember, I was talking about crack earlier. Many of the original Black Panther leaders succumbed to drug addiction. See, this is where restrictive law comes in. See, we don't want restrictive law. You know, some of us are scared of the nation because we know the nation ain't going to take you as you are. We'll take you as you are, but you can't stay as you are. You can't smoke everything. You can't run up in everything. You can't fornicate. You can't be a nigga. You got to go through the process of de-niggifying yourself. But he developed an addiction, and he was actually murdered in a drug deal gone wrong. Authorities said Robinson, who reportedly murdered him, a small-time narcotics dealer for a drug organization operated by the Black Guerrilla family prison gang, confessed that he pumped 3 bullets from a 9mm semi-automatic pistol into Newton's head during an argument over cocaine early last Tuesday. Robinson, who has been in police custody on an unrelated charge since late Tuesday, told police he shot Newton in self-defense after Newton pulled a gun. But homicide investigators said no weapon was found at the scene. A rundown residential district only 2 blocks from the original clubhouse of the now defunct Black Panthers. This happened in the late 80s. So like I said, when the enemy brings his guns, at that point, he's pretty much already won. That's why the police don't kick down doors in Beverly Hills. They don't kick down doors in Buckhead. Because they know that the organization and the discipline and the self-love in that community is too thick for them to kick down somebody's door without a cause and get away with it. But they kick down our doors because they know we already destroyed them in our mind. They know we already silly enough to just think that all I need is a gun. There's a discipline that has to come to this revolutionary thing. Being a revolutionary ain't just about talking tough, looking tough, and having a tough gun. Our Black Panther brothers and sisters prove that in more ways than one. We're going to keep going. Like I said, I'm not knocking the Black Panthers. I love them. I love what they did. Like I said, I love black unity wherever I can find it. It's so rare. Again, that's another thing that's hard to find in the hood. Real unity. It's so hard to find that when I see it, you know, it's just, it's music to my ears, music to my eyes. Now again, just like with the Obama question that I had, I'm gonna bring up another contradiction. For those who feel like, you know what, listen, brother, I hear what you're saying, all them statistics and all of that, you know what I'm saying, but I need my gun, man. These crackers ain't gonna run up on me. All right, brother, I understand. But I mentioned that one of the fast rising questions that we run into as believers is, when y'all gonna pick up the guns? There's another question that we've been getting over the last 10 years, and I'm just gonna touch on it just a little bit to expose a contradiction in our people. Man, I heard, and you know when black folks, when we start off with I heard, because we not tapped into the right channels when it comes to information anyway. We get our information from the absolute worst places. So when we say I heard, you 9 times out of 10, something dumb about to fall off our brother or our sister's lips. I heard that the Nation of Islam sold out to Scientology. Man, y'all sold out to that white man, what's his name? Ronnie Hubbard, what's his name? Man, that he a white man, man. Man, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad would have never did nothing like that, man. I can't believe that. See, I was just about to come to FOI class, but then I heard that, man, and it was like, man, I don't know. Y'all just sold out to Diamonetics. Look at that man, he white, man. Man, the messenger would have never did nothing like that. He would have never did nothing like that. Okay, I hear you, family. I hear you. But I'm going to bust up another little bit of contradiction real quick. First of all, to that so-called point that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad would never invite us or implore us to get information or technology or teaching from a white person in order to help us is absolutely false. First of all, the messenger and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan would never tell us not to go to college. Even most HBCUs were founded by white people, and we know the HWCUs are founded by white people. But the most honorable Elijah Muhammad implored believers prior to 75 to not only read this book, which was one of the inspirations of proper handling the people. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That is not a light-skinned black man in that picture. Dale Carnegie is as white comes. But not only that, Dale Carnegie, in most major cities, he had a class program at a lot of centers. They call them learning annexes, where you could go and learn some of the skills that he taught. He taught leadership skills and business skills, public speaking. In fact, if you were going to be a minister in the Nation of Islam, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad implored brothers who wanted to enter the actual ministry to go and take his public speaking classes. Dale Carnegie. How do I know that? That's because I get my information from the right places. This is an article from a book that dealt with all the Black Power organizations of the 60s and 70s. It's also an excerpt from Jet magazine. And they were following around one of the original ministers out here in Los Angeles. And they were in the mosque and they were interviewing believers in Los Angeles. And here's an excerpt from it. It says, even Assistant Minister Arthur X. Coleman, who spoke but acknowledged the human cost of following the nation's, exacting discipline. His own wife had left him for home back in Tennessee not long after he had thrown all the sweet potatoes and pork products out of their refrigerator to follow the Muslim diet. Although Coleman scoffed at some teachings in the beginning, he told his grandfather he doubted claims that Mr. Muhammad had conversations directly with God. He struggled toward a new identity through an eclectic regimen that included Dale Carnegie public speaking courses. These interviews were taken in the 1960s. Now, why am I even bringing up Dianetics? Why am I even bringing up L. Ron Hubbard? Why am I bringing up this cracker, Dale Carnegie? Because that's the contradiction. Why y'all using something from a white man? I thought y'all was blackety black, blackety black, crunchety black. Why y'all using this white man stuff, man? White man stuff? Okay. So if that's the move, let's talk about white man stuff. This is Mikhail Kalashnikov. He is the inventor of the AK-47. The K in AK stands for Kalashnikov. The 47 is because it was invented and distributed in 1947. That ain't a Creole you looking at right there. Not only was he Russian, but he was also a racist. Didn't give a damn about black people. How do I know he's a racist? Because when he first invented the weapon, there were African nations who had all the money in the world to offer him, and also even Middle Eastern Arab nations that wanted to get first dibs on the AK-47 when it was produced. He told them that they would never be able to directly buy his gun from him. They would have to buy a third party through another country like America. But he only sold his weapons in the beginning directly to European Anglo nations. This is Horace Smith. Now that name don't ring a bell. That's a pretty common name, Horace Smith. But when I bring up his homeboy, now it makes sense. Daniel B. Wesson. Put them together. Smith, Wesson, Smith, Wesson, Smith, Wesson. Two crackety crack crackers. O.F. Mossberg and Sons. I know you've heard of that Mossberg, the sawed-off pump, a very commonly used weapon in gang violence, especially out here in Los Angeles. It was even a rapper, may Allah be pleased, who went by the name Mossberg. These were Jews. In fact, Israel to this day is one of the largest, if not the largest, gun manufacturer and dealer in the world. O.F. Mossberg, ladies and gentlemen. And then I saved the best for last. Richard Jordan Gatling, who was born a Southern Confederate, but then he found out later in life that, banging as a Confederate against Yankees, it wasn't good for business. So he moved to New York. He was what they call a city slicker. He invented the Gatling gun, which was the first operational and successfully operational machine gun. His invention set the tone for all machine guns that exist today. And he was a Southern slave owning. His family owned slaves before he himself moved up to New York, blended in with the Yankees, and he was selling guns to both sides of the Civil War. And his gun was quite, if you ever heard of the war in Gettysburg, his Gatling gun was very instrumental because the Confederacy couldn't afford the Gatling gun. They spent their last money on a submarine that sank on the coast of South Carolina, so they couldn't afford his Gatling gun. The Union could, and it was very instrumental in the Union winning the Battle of Gettysburg. So again, if that's where you stand, man, you know, I ain't dealing with nothing white. It's all about black, black, blackity, black, 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 black. You got brothers like, I usually don't say names, especially when it's a brother, but Malik Zulu Shabazz, whatever his name is, he's supposed to be one of the leaders of the new Black Panther Party. He likes to throw out the deceptive intelligence about Dianetics. Well, let's talk about these guns. Name a gun that was invented by us. Name a gun that was distributed by us. Hell, I ain't never even heard of a black-owned gun store. Anything that we consume, I tell people all the time, we should at least get in the business of everything we consume. There should be sisters in every hood that sell weave. There should be brothers in every neighborhood with a liquor store. It should be 3 or 4 black-owned liquor stores. At least get in the business. If you can't clean yourself up, if you don't have any morals, no discipline, at least get in the business of the things that we consume that are destroying us. At least do that. All the money that our brothers made in the crack game is all dried up now. You got 5150 brothers walking around eating out of trash cans that was making $100,000 a day back in the 80s, right here in LA. At least make money off of what you say. At least make money off of our vices. So if you're going to play that game, if it's all about, oh, well, you know, it's just all black, 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 everything. We are actually, these guns, like I said, bullets don't have names on them, but guns do. These guns have names of racist Caucasians, and they still control these industries. What makes you think? Remember the story I just told you about Richard Gatling? Really, the Civil War basically came down to who bought his Gatling gun first. History could have changed. It could have been a different ball game if the Confederacy would have had a gang of Gatling guns and the Union didn't. So you mean to tell me that a gun is your protection from the man that makes those guns? That's just not intelligent. That's just not intelligent. I'm so sorry. But we need guns, because if we got guns, and even in the scenario that we're taught that once we have a land of our own, we'll need guns to be able to establish it and to be able to protect it, you still have to consider restrictive law. You got to consider discipline. You got to consider not letting the enemy do the work that comes before the gun. Remember, like I said, read that book, Diary of an Economic Hitman. It doesn't just talk about the economic tactics that America uses, but just the infiltration tactics. If you don't understand what I'm talking about on that, then just ask our brother, Muammar Gaddafi. Among all the great things that he did for his people, one thing he did, he armed every citizen in Libya. The government, just like America's government handed out government cheese back in the day, he handed out weapons. And they used those same weapons to murder him. But the gun is your salvation. as a descendant of our brothers and sisters that set up Black Wall Street. Y'all hear me talk about Black Wall Street all the time. We should talk more about Black Wall Street just as black people and every other bit of pre-integration success that we've had. But there's a big myth that I always hear people say because they don't have, like they say on the Breakfast Club and stuff, they don't have the education, like Kanye told Sway. They don't have the education. They say, well, if them brothers in Black Wall Street would have had guns, who told you they didn't? Oklahoma was and is the wild, wild west. You did not operate anything in the Wild West without having guns. The Lone Ranger, a brother in Oklahoma, was really a black man. He wasn't some white dude running around with some Indian. He was a brother who had a very close relationship with the tribal communities in Oklahoma. They had plenty of militias in Black Wall Street, and they fought with guns. That's why the United States military dropped bombs on Black Wall Street. These brothers were they actually knew more about guns at the beginning of Black Wall, when they began to build the economic foundation of Black Wall Street. These were brothers who couldn't hardly read or write, and they actually knew more about guns than they did. Remember I told you I knew more about guns than filling out a college application? The founders of Black Wall Street in the late 1800s, they knew more about using their hands with any type of tool, including a gun, than they knew about running a business and owning property. These were all former slaves and sharecroppers. So they knew more about handling hardware than they knew about running a civilization and running a town of their own. They figured that out on the fly. But they knew how to protect themselves, and they were winning the battles. And that's why the planes came and dropped the bombs. And the biggest mistake that they made in Black Wall Street, it wasn't not having guns. They had those. The only mistake they made was not rebuilding. So don't tell me that, oh, well, look what happened to them. We so damn scared. Why are we so damn scared? I'm going to tell you something that I witnessed growing up, and I'm about to close out in a minute. Shout out to everybody chiming in. Make sure y'all share this video if you ain't scared. Share if you ain't scared. But one thing I found out about growing up in Tornado Alley, around this time of year, between like March and August, that's basically tornado season. So in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, those kind of places, you can turn on the news almost any day in the spring and summer, and you'll see where a tornado now, this is the hand of God. They call the F5 tornado the hand of God. Will pick up a whole trailer park, a whole zip code, and toss that thing into the next zip code. And then the news will come after it, and they'll interview the survivors, the white Caucasian survivors. These tornadoes rarely affect black neighborhoods. I know this from personal experience. But they would come to the white survivors of these tornadoes and say, ma'am, sir, your whole community has been devastated. That tornado picked your whole trailer park up and threw it to Arkansas. What are you going to do now? Now, this is God now. God just banged on them. Not white people, not the government, God. And they will look at the camera and say, well, we're just going to rebuild. So if we're going to mimic white people, before we mimic how they love guns, we need to mimic some of the other things that they do. The unity that they show, the perseverance that they show, the love for their communities that they show, that not even God can bang on them hard enough to keep them from rebuilding. So our reliance on this thing, as silly as a gun, all it really does is expose the fear that we have in our heart and the self-hate that we have in our heart. That's all it really is. And today is an event that has been organized. I'm not exactly sure by who, but I bank with a black-owned bank. Today is Blackout Day 2020. I know some of y'all went out and spent money today. Listen, whatever amount of money you spent today, make sure you go out tomorrow and spend that same amount of money with a black-owned business to make up for it. Me and my wife, we actually doing a blackout all week. We are only spending with black-owned businesses for the week. We strive to spend with black-owned businesses anyway, as y'all have seen here on NationTown TV. But this week in particular, we stretched it out to a week, not just a day. You know, if we can't get it from a black-owned business, we just gonna go without it this week. This is more powerful than a gun. This is why they dropping off whole tankers, whole train carts of guns in our community. This is what they fear. That's what they really fear. They fear this more than they fear that. I'm sorry. Because they know where those guns come from. In fact, almost everything those brothers and sisters have on, they got it from them. Like Brother Grandmaster Jay himself said. He said most of us are former military, so they trained us and trained us well. I don't even think he realized how right he was when he said that we are people that are trained well by our enemy. All of us, not just those of us that were in the military. We are mentally trained well by our enemy. So make sure you support Blackout Day. Make every day a Blackout Day. Make every day a Black Dollar Day. Every Black Dollar Day is a holiday. So with that said, family, I appreciate y'all tapping in. I didn't really get a chance to go into the comments and whatnot, because there's a lot of information I had to lay out there. But these are just facts. If you're mad at it, I understand. If you need a gun to sleep better at night, I understand. Some of y'all so mad right now, you probably like, I bet if I put a gun in your face, I bet, you know what? If you put a gun in my face, and if I'm unable to get it away from you, and I die, and I'm murdered, with the heart that I have now, I'm not perfect, but with the heart that I have now for my people, what better way to go out? What better way to go out? And if there is, I'm not saying that I will not be made afraid, but if there is any fear in me when you put that gun in my face, it ain't going to be me being afraid of your raggedy behind. It's going to be of that name that I see on the side of that gun. That ain't your name. It ain't you. It's that gun. So let's put away fake black power. That's what that is. That's fake black power. We feel powerful because it just gives us this sense of power, because we don't know what real power is. When you don't know what real power is, it's almost like how a child sometimes will put their little bitty feet in their daddy's shoes, put his shirt on, put his pants on, and flop around the house trying to be like their daddy. That's cute when we see a child do that. But what we doing in our communities is that we flopping around trying to look like our wicked foster father, which is the white man, and it's not a good look. Once again, may Allah be pleased with our beautiful sister, Secoriea Turner. May Allah be pleased with our family that was also murdered, the other 5 children that were murdered this past weekend. May Allah be pleased with them. I pray that it turns out that wasn't an actual black protester. Even if it goes in the books like that. We all know how some of these false flag operations work. But I just pray it wasn't what it looked like. It's believable. I have to say it is believable, because like I said, when we get that little gun in our hand with that white man's name on it, we just get so turned up. But you a God without that gun. And that's what this brother taught us and is teaching us. That's what this brother taught us and is teaching us. Go learn how to use a gun. We're told in the FOI that we're able to go to the gun range and get gun training. Go get gun training. But keep them out your house. Because once this devil knows that your faith is in that gun, he got you exactly where he wants you. He got you exactly where he wants you. And I don't think I brought this up earlier, but I want you to see this for yourself. The governor of Georgia declares state of emergency and calls up the National Guard. And with that said, I'm going to leave us with the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as it pertains to us relying on these weapons, relying on and killing each other, thinking that all of our salvation has to come through this devil. I showed y'all this last week. I'm gonna see if I can pull it back up. I may or may not have it. Let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up for you. Let the minister tell you in his own words.
You don't believe this white man is your enemy. So what God is going to do, since you have become an enemy to yourself, God is going to turn this white man loose on you. Since you like to kill, God got something for him, but he going to make him whoop the hell out of you. Mark my words. When you see it happening, remember, you heard it here.
A. Tatiana Jefferson shot and killed in her home by a Fort Worth police officer early this morning.
Put your hands up, come in. He's going to come in your house and start killing the members of your family. I said he's coming in your house and start taking out members of your family that you love and the better ones among you, and leaving the worst ones to suffer.
That said, family, with that said, I'll leave you as I greeted you in the words of peace. Appreciate y'all sticking it out with me. Assalamu alaikum.